Without really knowing how to scale a real estate business, we were buying small multifamily properties. We were using our own funds. We brought in some of our friends and family. So at this point, I'm owner or part owner, 6 or 7 operating companies. Getting into your first house via house hacking has got to be the easiest way to get into real estate investing. It's almost foolproof because you're going to rent or buy anyway. The money's going out, so it's already a planned expense. Through this horror story, we invested in other properties that were our most successful ones. Like our last 3 deals have been our 3 most successful deals. It took the beating to get where we are today.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I'm thrilled you're here. And you're in for a fascinating conversation. I'm really looking forward to this. A gentleman named Andrew Hinton, and he's the head of GL Capital and quite a few other things, actually. I'm gonna let him tell you about all that, but got a lot of cool stuff going on, and I'm excited to have, I think, what's going to be a very wide-ranging conversation. What's happening, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Rob.
All right,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Well, why don't you give us some background on, you tell me about all these businesses that you're in, but go back and let us know, how you got started and bring us current.
Sure. So out of college, I was really interested in technology entrepreneurship. I had the opportunity to start a business out of college. It wasn't necessarily like high tech, but it was what I needed to learn that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to own my own businesses. And fast forward, it was when I bought my first rental property. It was actually a house hacking that I knew that I wanted to be a real estate entrepreneur.
Where at, by the way?
I was in Baltimore, Maryland.
It was in Baltimore,
yeah,
okay.
I was renting a room. It was $500 a month. I had 7 roommates. The landlord wanted to sell it to pay for some other venture he was doing. And so the roommates put a few $1,000s together and bought the house. And I managed the whole process, and a light bulb went off. We had bought it for $315,000. It was worth about $375,000. We had to put a $60,000 deposit down. So in basically a day, we had doubled our money, and I saw that, and I knew instantly that was going to be.
When was this?
That was 2016.
Okay, yeah. Fantastic. Okay, you're young. All right.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah.
So saw the opportunity in real estate. Baltimore's a great market to get involved because low barrier to entry.
Right.
You could buy a house for $60,000. That's worth $200,000. You got to put in a little bit of sweat and time and money, and voila. So we were flipping houses. It was a lot of work to do the single family, turnaround. So we saw an opportunity to basically scale. Well, at the time it was scaling to 5, 6, 7 unit buildings. Mm-hmm. Some value add where we were doing some cosmetic upgrades and
just buying for your own account. I take
right.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Without really knowing how to scale a real estate business, we were buying small multifamily properties. We were using our own funds. We brought in some of our friends and family. Mm-hmm. And before we know it, it was 2 years. We had 39 units under management.
Wow.
And then that's when it was 3 of us partners, my partner Jade and Kelvin, were getting together and say, hey, we can do something, serious here. So that's when we leveled up from the 5 to 10 unit buildings to the 20 to 50 unit building range.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that's when we became.
Let me stop you for a second. So in the 20 to 50 unit range, where were you finding those assets?
So
how were you finding them?
Yeah, I could go through. So one of them was a broker. One of them was a wholesaler. One of them we bought at auction.
Wow.
One we knew the owner directly. So everything they say,
a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, that you're supposed
I would say
to do.
The number one was definitely brokers.
Right.
But it wasn't when it just came on market. It was when we called the broker back to say, hey, what happened to that deal? And they said, oh, it just fell out of contract. Yeah. Do you want to buy it? So we could get our price.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Guys, I can't tell you how many deals get bought in the way he just described, which is why, if you miss out on a deal, you've got to follow up with that broker because so many deals fall through, especially today with what's happening with capital. So, but even for the last 3 years, I can't tell you how many of my warriors and us as well have bought deals because we followed up. All right. So you went to 20 to 50 units and you bought them from a bunch of different places, self-managing.
Okay. Painting, go into eviction court, the whole 9 yards.
Everything.
Lots of stories.
Okay. And does does it stop there, or did you actually do some larger stuff as well, or that's been your focus? Is that 20 to 50 range?
So as of today, we're under contract for 109 units.
Okay.
Closes next month
In Baltimore?
In Baltimore County.
Okay.
So it's a garden style.
Perfect.
We did a mid-rise. We looked at a couple high rises, and the 2-story garden style.
Mid-rise is perfect, man. That's the bread and butter.
And then
what age?
1952.
Oh, old. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty standard in Baltimore. A lot of inventory
brick?
in Baltimore. 2-story brick. Yeah.
2-story brick.
So good structurally.
I mean, boiler, is that how it is? A boiler. Big boiler? Okay. And no air conditioning, or they have air conditioning? Wall units or window units?
So the value add program initially is keep it as is with no AC, window units only, but over time to power up, increase
and
electric into the building,
central
and get a central air.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. But the units aren't too small, ceilings too low, no serious functional obsolescence, or there is a little?
Ceilings too low, no. They're not huge units. They're getting $750 for a 1-bedroom, and market's $1,000. It's a mile away from UMBC, and they're not doing any advertising to students.
Nice.
I'll tell you this: when we walked in the leasing office, there was no computer. They were using a typewriter to print receipts.
A real typewriter?
And
oh my God.
The maintenance slips were handwritten. So they put off the gray slip, gave it to the tenant, and there was a pink slip left. That's how they do all their repairs.
That's exciting. Now
that's exciting.
That's exciting. Okay, wow. Yeah, I remember almost bought a mobile home park and went to the owner, and his filing system was his desk with about 6 inches of paper on it. One of those, checks where the check goes onto the paper below, you tear it off, and that's your accounting system. Anyway.
Yep.
Wow. All right. So you got a 109 unit going. You're syndicating that one?
Yeah.
Okay, good for you. And so you talked about your team, okay? And you said the names, but what does each play a different role? Do you guys all wear the same hats? Talk about the team dynamic and why you guys feel like you work well together. Speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So at this point, I'm owner or part owner in 6 or 7 operating companies. And it's important that I have an operator who's the boots on the ground, I guess director of operations, if you will. I filled that role for GL Capital, the investing business, but for the property management company, we've got a head of property management. We've got a property manager. So those are really the ones that report to me. In the restaurant business, I have an operator. In the commercial,
so you have 2 restaurants. That's what you described.
2 restaurants.
So you've got a working operator.
Correct.
That's handling the day to day.
Correct.
Okay. And you're an investor in it, basically.
Yes.
Okay. And you had something else. I forgot what the other one. Oh, brokerage. Your real estate brokerage. Are you a broker?
I'm a broker.
Okay.
I was listening to a couple of your podcasts where you explain the dynamic between whether you should get your license or not, and you have it perfect.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is if somebody asks me, should I get my license to do this business? I always say no, and here's why. Unless you're going to just sell real estate. If you're just going to sell and buy real estate. Now, there's a caveat. If you're going to buy small stuff in your own state, sure, because you'll have access to the MLS. Although I have hired brokers as really just a face of a brokerage. I've did that here in Florida, and I got an $80,000 commission on this compound right here, and I pay the guy $300 a month to be the broker of record. But any commission that came in on anything I did came to the company, quote unquote. Even though I'm not licensed here, the company can make money, and it's completely legal. So I did that, But what I'm getting at is when somebody says, should I get my license? I always say no, because you're held to a higher standard. You've got liability, and why would you bring that liability on yourself unless you're going to sell? If you're going to buy and invest, for God's sakes, it's unnecessary. You're not going to learn how to do it, that's for sure. People think they're going to learn something from the licensing stuff, and that's just how to protect the public more than anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To a degree, I think from the very get-go, and I've seen models that worked really successfully where you have a private equity syndication company, and then there's a brokerage arm to it. So if we build our portfolio to be 10,000 units or more, which is our long-term goal, then that's a lot of apartment buildings we're going to need to sell. That's a lot of deal flow we need to have. And
so you sell your own inventory, sure.
And it's very capital intensive. At the same time, the cash flow is huge. I mean, lifetime cash flow, right? So cash flow from brokers actually is quite high because it's not a lot of capital expenditures, but so the margins are really good.
You mean in your brokerage for you to have agents
I want to own a brokerage. I don't necessarily want to sell real estate.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that's different. Okay, that's completely different. I get calls from people that want to get into real estate and say, should I get my real estate license?
Right.
And my answer is no, absolutely not, unless you're going to just go sell real estate, or if you're just going to buy small stuff in that market, maybe. But what you just described, where you own the brokerage, that's a whole different. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You want to have an aside. I was a broker right when I turned 18. You could do it back then through education. Now you've got to have some experience to be a broker, but I could have my own office. That's how stupid they were back then. And then my brother became a broker right when he turned 18. Beat me like a few days. I was so pissed. But yeah, that's I talked about that.
So did getting your license and actively selling houses help you in what you're doing today? That would be my question.
No. But I mean, I bought hundreds of houses. I've owned 2,000 houses in my career, and I bought 500 in Denver. And what I used to do was run foreclosures. I'd knock on the door. Hey, I saw you're having some trouble with countrywide funding. And, I help people when they're in foreclosure. And I listed a ton of houses, and I bought a ton of houses and helped people get financing if I could. And, I did that for years and years, every night out there. I was driving a Subaru Brat. You remember Subaru Brat with the little seat in the back seat? Oh, piece of crap. Oh my God. But you own a restaurant business. You've got your brokerage. You've got your syndication business now. You've done some construction as well. Speak to your construction experience a little bit.
So it started with the single family redevelopment. We were flipping houses, but these were substantial projects. We weren't just going in and doing cosmetic stuff. We were doing additions. Like our model was find a 2-bedroom house in Baltimore, less than 100,000, add a 600 to 1,000 square feet, whether it was up.
Make it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath or something,
exactly.
Right? Okay.
And sell it 250 range.
Gotcha. Oh, that's a good model. That's a good model.
It was a steep learning curve at first because it was permitting was somewhat new. The architecture was somewhat new. Handling contractors was somewhat new. So
you learned.
We cut our
did
teeth.
Some seminars. Are we leading into the horror story?
Because
he told me to ask him. You told me to ask him about a horror story, and I'm just curious because your apprehension here made it sound like we might be heading that direction.
We're heading that way.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So the flipping was good. Then we were doing the small multifamily acquisitions.
Nice.
So we found the opportunity to essentially flip a 4-unit. So it was a completely vacant, got rehab 4 units.
Nice.
And it was next door to where we had 17 units. Okay. So it was like a strategic.
Well, it's a shame you flipped it and didn't hold it if you had 17 right now.
No, we did. We held it. We still
held it. Oh, good. Oh, okay. I thought you said flipping.
It makes the neighborhood look so much more beautiful. It's a really good project. It's cash flowing great. So that's the one we did before we found an office building downtown Baltimore.
Okay.
That there's an Irish pub on the first floor that I used to go to watch NBA games. I didn't have cable.
Oh, so a little reminiscent then. You bought an asset you used to go to.
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and this was early on. This was probably 2018. So it was off market. A wholesaler brought it to me. I walked it. It was all vacant office space.
So it was the pub on the ground floor, and there were offices above it.
There's a Indian restaurant too.
Oh,
so it was $14,000 a month.
The smell just hit me just now. The smell. That's why those offices are vacant. Sorry if you're Indian. I'm teasing on this, but that curry is a little pungent.
It's an old building, and actually it's insulated pretty well.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the $14,000 a month was the income on this. It was 1.8 million. So if you look at the cap rate, it's a 10% cap rate.
Wow.
Without doing a single thing.
Without filling the offices.
That's taxes, insurance, and the commercial rent.
Wow.
Income.
Fantastic.
So I thought it was a great opportunity. It took a year to do entitlements.
Entitlements to do what?
To renovate the apartments and offices into apartments.
So you converted them to apartments?
Multifamily.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
That's all new plumbing, everything else. But you had floors deep enough to run plumbing and all that stuff?
This is where
the horror story comes in?
The leap from the 4-unit, which was a little bit of structural, but mostly just kitchens and bathrooms,
sure.
went to brand new electric meter stack, water plumbing configuration that was because it was already serving the 2 restaurants. So we had to, while those were still active, open
without
for business, we had to bring in new plumbing. It was fire safety, which
oh my God, yeah,
killed us.
I didn't even think about that. Did you had to run sprinkler?
Well, the egress was the situation where because of how it was chopped up, we needed to get all the apartments to 2 stairwells.
Wow.
And so it's this great opportunity on paper that, and the pandemic
Geez.
caused a major slowdown, obviously from March to July, but a fire alarm panel took 8 months.
Wow.
Because of supply chain. It was Honeywell. Honeywell was like not putting out these fire alarm panels.
Gotcha.
And code had changed, so we were not able to build as it was permitted. We had to update to new equipment.
Oh yeah, sure.
And that equipment was on recall or whatever
wow.
for months. So the lesson was
this the horror story?
It's not done yet.
Oh,
we bought it in 2018. No,
it's still not done.
No, it's not open.
We're 5 years later and it's not done yet.
Yeah.
That's a horror story.
Yeah.
That's a horror story. Okay, that's a good one, man. That's one of the best ones I've heard so far.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of valuable lessons in that for your next one. But
that's right.
That's how you look at it. There's a seminar. I call them seminars. If you lose 50 million, then you let me know so I can feel better about what happened to me. Okay. But okay. Yeah. Wow. Holy cow. That's crazy. It's still not done. Are you close?
We've been so close for years.
What's the hang up today?
The hang up today is a demising wall that needed to be permanent, 12 feet by 8 feet tall with a doorway in it because there was too long of a distance for people to get out of the building.
It needed to be permanent. Is that what you said? So you just got to put in a wall. Okay.
But it's been 2 months, a month and a half.
Okay.
So there's been a list, and then it was a new list, and then it was a new list.
Well, I'm sure you've discovered in your communication with the county or the city or whichever governing body is making your life hell, is that you have to document every communication in writing because otherwise things change. Did you learn that the hard way?
There's things in writing that
they ignore it anyway, huh? Okay. Yeah. By the way, guys, if you're ever dealing with a county or a city official and you have a conversation, you always document it in writing. And maybe it doesn't help you, but it's at least you've got something to point to if they change the rules on you. But oh God, what a nightmare, brother.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to something else because it hurts just thinking about that. So you mentioned before we started recording, let's move on to something positive, shall we? You've got a growth mindset.
Sure.
Okay. And I told you that this show is all about mindset.
Sure.
So talk to me about what that is, where it came from, and how you implement it.
Always been interested in entrepreneurship. I studied it. I have read. I love biographies of founders and seeing their story. And you can change. Entrepreneurs can change the world in a way that nonprofit or policymakers can't.
Right.
And that's important to me, is creating a big impact. Making people happy, not in the sense of a funny video, but in the sense of them just being happier people, generally. And so through the products we have, through services we have, through technology that improves our lives, I think that's the impact I'd like to make. So
it's really an impact mindset, versus a growth mindset. Okay.
So to make an impact, you need to own companies and build those companies up to be
certainly the best
way,
in my opinion.
With the premise being, how do we grow companies to be successful and to last? Is you have to have a big vision.
Right.
Right. And
are you the visionary?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
And my partner is also a visionary.
Okay.
And I don't want this to fall back on them saying that I'm the visionary.
Okay.
I can take that out. So
that's awesome. When you've got more than one visionary and you guys can compare notes.
We need operators.
Good God. Yeah. You're off to the freaking races.
So we want to build a massive real estate company.
Gotcha.
We want to invest in technology companies and help them scale their businesses. And then, through other private equity investments. I think private equity is such a underappreciated industry because I think
you're talking about syndication when you're talking about private equity, or you're just
talking about infusing a company with funds and new people and new opportunities so that they can grow and scale.
And you like the tech business. I know before we started recording, you talked about utilizing tech in growing your companies, which we feel the exact same way, but you're going to invest in those tech companies as well. I love it. Okay.
Yeah. The idea of using technology to reduce your operating costs or improve your efficiency, improve your customer service, that's all technology does. So to invest in those products and services where we can use them and we have intimate understanding of how it works, and then
and you're an investor in
you're
them
an
as
investor.
well. I mean, you're actually you're not just a customer. You're an investor. I mean, that's prudent.
So
I mean,
it's
I
a
like
strategic venture capital
sure
company.
And of course, you're going to have the benefit of all the activity that's happening. You'll have inside knowledge of the advancements and so on and so forth. You'll be beta testing advancements,
That's
I would
right.
guess, all of that. So, I love it. Now, you had talked about a deal that you tokenized.
Yes.
I'd like to expand on that a little bit.
Sure.
I'm kind of dubious. I'll be, you hear about FTX and the billions lost, and you hear about, all
Sure.
Bitcoin is way down
Sure.
and people are crying. I literally have seen people crying on social media over it. So talk about what tokenization is and how that was implemented on an asset.
I'll start by saying as a value investor, I've never invested in cryptocurrency myself. So I don't own any Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything that. So I think that's important to note because I'm not trying to push cryptocurrency on any audience. Instead, I'm solving a problem for how you know that you are invested in a company. So for you, if you've done multifamily syndications, chances are people have, or are you invested in any multifamily syndications that aren't yours?
No.
Not really.
No, I'm a control freak.
So your investors, how do they know they're invested in your projects?
Well, I mean, they register on a portal and they get constant, continual communication from us on a weekly and monthly basis, emails, webinars, and so on and so forth. And of course, they get distribution checks on all but one asset that had a fire, but they'll be getting them soon. So
sure.
But yeah.
And there's a, like they're on the tax returns, but how do they know how many shares they have in your properties?
Well, they get a certificate that outlines exactly what their percentage ownership is in that particular asset.
Right.
0.12.
What does that certificate look like?
I don't know. Honestly, it's a single page document that spells out what that percentage is, right?
So the premise of what we've done, we haven't necessarily created a new token, although that's something that we have the option of doing more freely in the future, is we've created a digital stock certificate that you can't edit. That's literally impossible to edit. So whereas yours, someone else could, look at that page and copy it or duplicate it.
Liquid paper.
it's a blockchain based digital stock certificate.
Okay, so that's okay. So it's a digital stock certificate that can't be modified, altered, whatever. So it's solid, it's secure.
It's secure.
Now, I guess I was thinking about it differently. Okay, I was thinking that you utilize that mechanism to do something else, like to sell that token or to market that token or to have a platform to market those tokens. Is that on the horizon? Is that happening? Yeah. What's the story?
So the three benefits, the one I've already shared is security.
Right. Sounds good there.
The other one is liquidity. So if you wanted to sell, if one of your investors wanted to sell their shares to someone else, you would need a website platform like
there are some out there now.
CrowdStreet, Fundrise, right?
Yeah.
But those live and die on their website. So if you don't go to their website or you're not on their website, you can't trade.
Right.
Whereas ours are actually like a token that you can sell and transfer to someone instantaneously and for no.
Well, I know there are securities. Well, let me back up. Your PPM and offering documents are going to spell out what a person can and can't do with that interest in that asset. So there will be some I's to dot and T's to cross. Typically there's some documentation.
Same structure.
That. Right.
506C.
Right.
OA is tied to the coin.
Okay.
Subscription docs are tied to the coin. AML.
Okay, so they reference the coin, they reference the token.
Investors only.
To accredited only. Okay, and so the documentation spells out the ability to have liquidity if you want to sell that particular interest in an asset via this token mechanism.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
And the third value proposition is accessibility. So whereas right now, if you wanted to get involved in one of your deals, you'd have to know you, and chances are be somewhat I guess people from all over the world could theoretically, but on a Coinbase, for example, people are already using that all over the world. So for someone to be invested in our syndications, they'd have to go on something they already trust and feel good about. Now's not a great time to be promoting this. However, I believe in the long run, I'll say if in the long run, this is something that does pick up momentum again, we'll be one of the leading companies in this technology. So to us, it's a hedge. We haven't invested a lot of money in it, but we are the first ones to do it successfully in Philadelphia. And so I think there's a good opportunity if it comes back.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about, you've got these different entities, you've got operating partners in each one. How do you manage that? How do you stay on top of it? Talk a little bit about, what sorts of operating strategies you utilize, KPIs, whatever you're doing to manage that many entities and stay on top so you don't lose track. Because I will tell you, I've had 27 businesses so far in my career, and I had many at the same time, and my focus was heavily diluted. Now, I did not have operating partners, and that's the big difference. I'm sure they're incentivized based on performance. They have an equity interest in the assets, correct? All of that?
Yes.
Okay. So, but you still have to stay on top of it. How do you stay on top of it?
What's the book? Traction?
Traction. Actually, Traction. Do you use the EOS system?
I'm not a rule follower, but weekly meetings and monthly, income statement reviews and quarterly rocks
So you're doing the quarterly rocks, you're doing the weekly meetings, you're doing that's the same thing we do.
That's essential.
It's an incredible program, and I'm really glad you brought it up. I should have stock in that freaking company because it's I brought it up in my mastermind. There's about I think 35 billion in assets represented by that, and I brought it out to them at our first meeting, which was here at my compound. It had 16 people here. It's only about $1 billion here. Yeah. And almost every single one of them has rolled it out. Yeah.
You're giving me way too much credit. You make it sound like I'm doing it
properly,
consistently.
Gotcha.
But when something comes up, it's very clear to me like there's a problem.
Okay.
If there's issues, if there's something that's like, what's going on? Income statement doesn't look great at any given time, or I get a note from someone that whatever red flag appears. That's usually the point where I'm like, okay, we need to get back on track with this. And then the operators, if they're really self-motivated and really have a strong vision and is the right person, they'll clean up their stuff.
You said if they're the right person.
Yeah.
Has that come up?
Yeah.
You have had to replace some?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
life.
That's the toughest part of the business.
Yeah.
Really any partner, whether it's life partner or business partner, like you learn kind of what you're looking for. You don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Partnerships are like a marriage, easy to get into and
really
hard to get out of. And I actually have a resource. If you're listening and you're thinking about getting a partnership, if you go to rodslinks.com or text links to 72345, there's a list of questions you should ask before you get in a partnership. And it's a very powerful list because, you get caught up in the emotion and you go out there and, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, we're going to kick ass. But you don't ask all the hard questions up front, and you need to. You need to stop, take a deep breath, and ask these questions. What happens if one of us dies? What happens, if we don't get along? What happens if you do more work than I do, or vice versa? And, and then you also need to trust your intuition. Okay, I can't stress this enough. If your brain is so powerful, it can pick up on these micro nuances that you're not consciously aware of. And of course, women are better at this than men, but men can hone it as well. And if your gut doesn't feel right, trust it, because it's seeing something you're not consciously aware of. I referenced the book Blink. I don't know if you've ever read the book Blink. And it talks about these best art experts in the world that can look at a painting and they know it's a fraud, but they don't know why. It's the same thing with a person. You can pick up subconsciously these. You know what I'm talking about here as far as your gut?
Yeah.
Have you had that happen to you? Where you've ignored it and regretted it? No? Okay. Maybe not.
I'm very trusting.
Yeah, well, I am too. But I actually, that's true. That's not
been
true.
Successful
I've been screwed so many times. I'm not trusting that much anymore. I'm actually a skeptic, candidly. It's a shame. It's sad.
Yeah.
But
the key is to walk away from it quickly if it's not going well.
Hire slow, fire fast.
And I mean, we had to we had to basically pay someone out,
buy them off. Yeah.
and we're better off for it. So it sucks to make it seem like someone else, potentially got over on you or got their unfair share. But really, if you look at the long run, like being free of that,
cut your losses,
Yeah.
It's money well spent.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears for a minute and talk about culture a little bit. You've got all these different entities. Are you intimately involved in these different cultures, or is your operator pretty much responsible for what's happening on the, like in your brokerage or at your restaurants and so on and so forth? Is when you speak, I see culture on your bio here, which is why I'm bringing up. Is it like the global over, the parent company culture, or is it these individual cultures at these different businesses?
I think I bring the top-down perspective when it comes to culture for every business.
Okay.
And I think that's...
What does that look like? I mean, what do you do to establish a culture? Just curious.
So culture and brand, I think, are tied together. I think you have to stand for something. You have to have a big vision, and everyone has to know the vision and know the values. And when you're hiring, they have to be aligned, because you're going to have a bad hire if they're not aligned with you.
As part of the EOS system and traction, you come up with your core values, and they're super important.
Yeah.
And integrity better be on there. And then you come up with your vision for the company. Yeah. And an entrepreneur or a visionary's job is to enroll people in that vision, get them behind that vision, get them supporting that vision. And the more you can involve the team in the setup and the implementation of that vision, the more they get behind it. And I'm sure you remember that from the book Traction as well.
Sure.
And there are other books that speak to this as well. But the Rockefeller Habits is another one that's the same. Okay, we went a little political before we started recording here, and I told you just how staunch I am on one side than the other, and you supported my position by bringing up the fact that you're reading Elon Musk's book right now. I haven't read it. Tell me about it. What's it
Ashley
about?
Vance, 2015. I wish I read it in 2015. I would have bought a bunch of Tesla stock.
Oh, no kidding.
It's
wow.
It basically, it reports on his early life and his founding.
It's like a biography?
It's co-founding his first internet company, and then
it's like he was in part of eBay or something. Oh, PayPal. Okay.
And he was and then SpaceX was just he wants to
go to Mars,
bring humans to Mars,
right.
And that when you talk about big vision and getting people on board, like people are want to work for his company for less than they would make other places, because his vision is so strong and because his work ethic is so strong, and he can bring resources to the company. So that's a good example of where having a big vision, like it's literally a universal like space travel mission, that engineers are going to go want to work for his company, and then they're the ones solving the problems to get the rockets into space. So he's almost creating the vision, and then bring people onto his team to get there.
He's knitting the parachute after he jumps out of the plane. Is really what he's doing. He's brilliant at it, honestly. I mean, what was it, $3 or $4 billion startups?
Yeah.
He's got the solar, he's got the SpaceX.
PayPal,
I don't know if the solar's still around.
Tesla.
Yeah.
And then everyone's criticizing him publicly about Twitter. And my only thought is, like, let's see what happens. The way he works, he's an engineering mindset. He's not a nice guy to people that he doesn't want part of his company. Like, we know that,
right?
But let's see what can happen in the long run.
I think he's fantastic. He's one of my heroes. I'm honestly, he can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. I love the guy, and I mean, there was so much crap and censorship on that platform. There's still censorship on other platforms. I remember my wife and I were walking on Lincoln Road, and she's a staunch Trump supporter. I mean, big time. She's black, which is unusual. And she saw a guy, this is when he was running, and she saw it the second time. She saw a guy with a Trump hat. She's like, "Yay, Trump!" And the guy interviewed her on Lincoln Road, and she just talked about how she liked him because he was staunchly against human trafficking, and how he'd earmarked $35 million towards human trafficking, and that she loved that he does what he says he's going to do. And it got, I don't know, like 3 or 4 million views, and then they took it down, and that's all she said. This and so that's just a prime example of censorship, which to me is just inexcusable. Frankly, we're supposed to have freedom of speech in this country, and that's why he's my hero. I mean, the fact that he went, and it may not have been the wisest investment, although I think he has a plan for it. Honestly, I think it's going to be more like oh, what's that platform in China that everybody lives on? Is it
WeChat?
What is it?
WeChat.
WeChat. That's it. You think that's what he's doing, or what do you think?
So I think he's a technologist.
Right.
I don't think he's a civil rights activist. So
no,
so
agreed.
Look at what his strong suit is. It's developing like world-class technology at lowest prices.
Right.
Like
the rockets. Like
rockets.
He got prices for rockets.
The electric
He's like, I'm
vehicle.
not buying that. So they made their own. Right.
I literally just read the chapter about his Tesla journey.
Right.
And how like other car companies like totally overlooked what he was doing. And he did everything with basically a blank slate, said, this is the problem I want to solve.
Right.
And he brought world-class engineers with this grand vision to like reduce the carbon footprint, all this stuff that made them want to work for the company. And they made it happen. And he was there,
well, sure,
leading, bringing resources. He was tinkering, he was designing, but really like all he had was a vision that he made people believe in so strongly that they worked day and night for him, and they built the company.
You know who else did that? Was Jobs. He did that with all the Apple products that he, he was like the visionary, and he was insistent on how it went. And guys, that's a formula for massive success. Is you come up with that big vision and you hire the best possible people you can find because you enrolled them in that vision. And Jobs is a great example, and Musk is a great example of the end result of that. I'm sure Bezos as well. I'll bet you he pretty much did the same thing. Brought in the best people he could find. I remember when people were making fun of him because he was going to sell books online. And became the wealthiest guy on the planet. And I still think that company's going big places because I spend so much freaking money on. I mean, it's so easy just to buy something there. Why go to the store when I can have it the next day just by clicking a few buttons and have it, buy it in 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So, but, well, that's I love that conversation, that whole visionary conversation. I love that a lot. So, this is a multifamily podcast, okay? Sure. And I get a lot of people that want to invest in multifamily like you've done, and you've done all these other things as well. But, what suggestions would you have for someone that, that needs to know they need to do something? They've got a W-2. They don't have the time freedom they want. They don't have the money freedom they want, and they know they need to do something. Give them some advice.
I think it's probably every single person on the podcast would have brought it up at some point. But getting into your first house via house hacking has got to be the easiest way to get into real estate investing.
For sure.
It's almost foolproof because you're going to rent or buy anyway. The money's going out, so it's already a planned expense. Yep. Hopefully you've got a job that covers you for it. And then boom, that's how you're building equity. I mean, our house was just appraised for $600,000 that we had bought for $315,000 in 2015. Nice. I was renting for $500 versus, I mean, I don't know how much you want the math, but I moved in with my wife.
You made some good money.
We made some good money. I moved in with my wife into a house, and we were Airbnb bedrooms.
No kidding.
So house hacked my first one, and then my second one. It was food on the money table. We were trying to build our business. All the money we earned from our business, we put back in the business. Yeah. I'm going
to stop you there.
Sorry, go ahead.
I want to stop you there. No, that's something you just said. I want to hammer home what you just said. The fact you said all the money you made went back into the business. I will tell you, every business I've ever had, I except for the current ones now because they're so profitable, I've never pulled money out of.
Yeah.
All the money has gone back in to build those businesses. And that's not true. My litigation support company made a lot of money there, but it was profitable before I pulled money out. So you live below your means initially. You build the business. You put all your money back into the business, and you don't go out there and blow it until it's rolling. Okay, and that applies to real estate as well. Would you agree?
I think you said, I've never put this together, live below your means.
Right.
House hacking is going to reduce your means. Right. So
sure.
You're able to live for less, and that allows you a much easier time to live below your means because all of it's going into savings.
That's right. No, it's fantastic example. Besides the horror show that I'm sure it's gonna be over here soon. In your journey, were there any other epiphanies or aha moments where you're like, okay, now I get it, that you haven't spoken about already? You may have already.
I'll say through this horror story, we invested in other properties that were our most successful ones. Like our last 3 deals have been our 3 most successful deals. So it took the beating to get where we are today.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
Yeah. So while it's a horror story, the key is you don't give up. You don't say this isn't for me, right? Because you've paid so much money for that lesson, you better keep doing it. And I think a lot of people, their first, maybe not their first deal, but one of their first 5 deals, let's say, something's going to go wrong.
Oh, sure.
You can't be 100% successful in real estate investing.
Right.
And I think that's like a story people read about real estate investors who are now successful. And like people who are syndicators, they don't want to like tell you about all the things that happen because they're trying to raise money.
I make them tell me, tell me about a failure and the lesson. So we do it at my boot camps as well on panels. We're like, what went wrong?
And that's why I love reading biographies. A lot of
Who's your favorite, just out of curiosity? I said
What It Takes by Steve Schwartzman is probably my number one. Principles by Ray Dalio. There's a short biography in the beginning. Shoe Dog by Phil McKnight.
That's when I had on top of
Alexander
my mind.
Hamilton. Like his story is incredible because they all went from, oh crap, we're gonna be bankrupt, to wildly successful. And it wasn't just, oh crap, we're gonna be bankrupt once. It was like 3 or 4 or 5 times in their first 10 years of their business.
Right.
So if you expect to become wildly successful without going through that same, almost
the hiccups, the setbacks, situation. The seminars.
And I heard what you have. And you got to do it and keep doing it. And I think the big vision tied with keeping going, if something bad happens, like that's the predecessor. So if you've learned one thing, it's the big vision is going to get you through those moments so that when you do come to the other side, you'll be able to use the lessons in order to make the money.
Listen, the biggest companies on the planet were born in tough times. And I just watched that movie with Matt Damon on the Shoe Dog story. Yeah, it was awesome movie. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I forgot what the name is, but great. Do you have you had any mentors along this journey?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a couple coaches now. So if you are independent, if you're working for a W-2, you might have a supervisor, someone you can go to. But if you're on your own, the business coaches, executive coaches, they're super helpful.
Sure. Sure.
You don't want to take that stuff home to your wife, and you don't want to, go to your employees with some of that stuff.
And coaches bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. They shorten the learning curve, and typically they have no secondary gain.
Right.
So when you're an executive or a CEO, or you're starting your own business, you have your own business. There's not a lot of people you can go to that have no secondary gain from their advice to you, and that's why coach is so powerful. I've had coaches my whole life. I got 2 or 3 right now.
And then just having people who are in your corner. You don't want to call them all the time. You definitely don't want to make too many asks. But in times of need, when you need to talk to someone, grooming those relationships, letting people feel good about helping you, like that. There's no substitute for that.
Agreed.
That's the best.
Agreed. Yeah. So we just talked about books. Is there a book that you like to gift more than others?
Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
By Gary Keller, Jay Papasan.
Oh, yeah.
So
I had Jay on the show, by the way.
Oh, really?
You're sitting in an esteemed seat.
Wow.
Yeah, I had Jay on
that's
Jay
awesome.
on the show.
I was
You can't get Gary. I mean, Gary does one interview a year, maybe.
Really?
But yeah.
So it's so well articulated about how to get started. And then if you're at a point where you've got 5 to 10 houses, is where there's different levels. So buying your first one's the first level. Getting to 10 units or 20 units is the second level. Then you want to start to scale. It breaks down the steps you have to take. And so wherever you are in your journey, I think you can learn something from that. And there's a mindset piece too, which is helpful. Like Gary Keller's, I think where I got, start with a big why, big models,
one thing,
big goals, big models.
He's got his one thing too as well,
tools,
which is also fantastic. Yeah.
So I would say that's my recommendation if you're trying to get started.
Good. Great suggestion. Now I know you've got a Master of Arts in Design, and so you've got a creative side to you, and that's not as linear as some entrepreneurs. And so when you were first getting started, or any time in your journey, how did you get past fear? Like maybe doing a larger deal or getting into something you hadn't done before, like restaurant business or whatever. How did you get past the fear?
I'm not sure I did.
Oh, really?
I think
so. You still operate in fear, which is most entrepreneurs that are smart keep a little bit fear going.
It's up and down.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster.
Okay.
I love the process. So in design, there's a concept called tolerance for ambiguity. And that's the idea of when things are unclear, you have to be able to tolerate that. And I think that's something that has helped me, you know, in owning businesses when things are up in the air, being okay with the idea that things are up in the air, because artists are like, you start a painting and it's going to look terrible until the very, 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 very end. Where if you design a product, it could look terrible because you're prototyping. Being okay and just going through the process no matter what happens. And then on the outcome, you're going to be better off for it because you worked through it.
Tolerance for ambiguity. I love that. Let me tell you why. Because for analytical people getting into this multifamily business, they have to check off every single freaking box before they make a move. And I love you and you know who you are. And this is a great example of that, because in the multifamily business, you're not going to see the whole path. But you got to take that first step. You know, like Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed. And that is a great descriptor for that exact same dynamic, you know, that holds people in analysis paralysis, right?
Yep.
You know, I know you're big on mindset like I am. Are there any favorite quotes that you enjoy, that you live by? You know, like I've got live with passion. That's one of Tony Robbins' quotes. I love that one. Love passion. Is there anything that you enjoy?
You know what? The one that's like coming to my mind, maybe it's not the one I think about the most, but it's the one I thought about most recently because I saw it somewhere. But it's as someone who deals with self-doubt a lot and the imposter syndrome, like it's I forget the name of the quote. It's a long one. It's like a paragraph. But
what's the basic premise?
People, like, your deepest fear is not that
you're inadequate. Oh no, that's
your deepest fear is that you're powerful beyond measure.
Yes,
strength,
it's not
your weakness.
Fear that holds you back.
And that's really important. For
Marianne
me.
Williamson.
Yeah, it gives me chills sometimes. You know, when I do.
I actually recited at my boot camp.
Yeah,
I got I got cheat sheets.
Oh, there you
in front
go.
Of me. No, that exact quote I recited at my boot camp. It's brilliant. You where you don't dim your light to you know, for other people.
I think just becoming aware that you getting on stage and being the person that you could be, the best version of yourself, is a little scary. And I think just becoming aware of that makes me feel free to take the next step.
Yeah.
The other one that's a shorter version is, if not me, who? If not now, when?
That's my dad used to tell me that. If not now, when? I love that quote. Yeah.
Go. Yeah.
I love it. You know, if you could teach school kids something for an hour or two a week, what might it be?
Well, I studied the design thinking process, and it's something where you identify what the real problem is, you brainstorm solutions, and you test the solutions out, and that's really where that's the process of innovation. Engineers use that process too.
Love it.
So we need inventors and innovators, and we don't just need business students or art students, right? So I don't think they teach that process in school because it's very creative. And I think that's one of the most important processes businesses
I love it.
need.
No, absolutely. That trial and error process. Love it. You know, on this journey of yours towards success, what are some things you had to cut out of your life to get there? Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids.
You have 2 kids. How old are they?
3.5 and almost 2.
Wow. Okay.
Little kids.
This is a good
I'm
question.
lucky to be here.
Right. So what, if anything, have you had to cut out for this success journey of yours?
I'll reverse the question. I think it's super important to be balanced.
Right.
And I think people who start their business go in isolation, or people who have kids go in isolation and they don't see their friends. I don't watch TV. I don't, I don't spend, I don't go out drinking or partying anymore as much as I did. So, I wouldn't say I cut that out though. I just started, growing up and but my advice would be for people who get into that, like, you got to go travel. You got to go do things by yourself. You got to go do couples trips. And that's going to help you survive the marathon of running your own business. Yeah.
Well, let me give you a little coaching. Okay.
Sure.
My greatest regret in life was coming home to my kids, actually right across the bay here, this what's now probably a $25 million home. It was $8 million at the time, and playing with my kids, but not being there mentally. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So put the phone down and block out the time, crawl on the floor, do what you have to do. You do not
Yeah.
want that regret. My kids will say I was a great dad, but I didn't live up to my own expectations. And I tell my students this as well.
I heard you say that.
Yeah, my student,
Yeah.
I tell them this as well because, yes, financial success is awesome and important and great. And if you lose sight of what's most important, trust me, you'll regret
Yeah.
it. So
Focus where your 2 feet are.
that's it. Well, listen, brother, I really appreciate you coming down here for this. And, it's been a really enjoyable conversation and a little different than normal. So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow. And they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. But see, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years and they own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345, or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now, again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.